tutare ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha.
Welcome everyone, and welcome to the Lama Live live stream event of Lama Sultram Alyone. Thank you for joining us, and we truly appreciate your dedication to learning and practicing together in this virtual space. My name is Dreame, and I have the pleasure of hosting this event for all of you from Poland. Before we get started with today's teachings, I want to bring to your attention that Taramandala is committed to being a welcoming, open, and safe community for practitioners and students of all cultures, races, religions, genders, sexual orientations, age, ability, and circumstances. Today, we will explore teachings under the guidance of our guest teacher, Pieter Oosthuizen. Pieter has been teaching various practices and retreats in Lama Sultram's lineage in the US and abroad since 2006. He co-leads the Boulder Taramandala Sangha with Magyulapon Charlotte Rotterdam. In addition to Lama Sultram Alyone, Pieter studied with Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche, Lama Tarchin Rinpoche, Adzom Pela Rinpoche, and others. He received his law degree in his native South Africa. It's with great pleasure that I welcome Pieter to share his guidance with us today. And let's all acknowledge the preciousness of the time we're sharing here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dreamer, for that beautiful introduction. And hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here today with Lama Live, and just to spend a little bit of time with all of you in these times, challenging times in the world, beautiful and challenging at the same time. So. Before we go further, I'm sitting here in Colorado, just outside of Boulder, Colorado, and this is being streamed all over the planet, wherever you may find yourself listening to this or watching this. And I just want to take a moment to, for me, I'm here speaking and it's being streamed out, but you are there receiving it. And that's how this network works. So I want to invite you to just for a moment become present and become aware of you listening and actually becoming a conscious node in this network that we're creating in this moment that spans the globe. Because I do think we can make a difference in terms of our intent. And today, I want to talk about compassion a little bit and about, we actually do some practice for the planet and for the events that's happening on the planet. So just take a moment and become conscious of yourself as being part of this network of beneficial intent. And then as we do that, let's take a moment to raise bodhicitta, raise our motivation for today, for this time spent that we are about to spend together. And this is always a good excuse to just become present right where you are in the space where you find yourself. Simply present in the moment. Maybe you're feeling your body, kind of the simplicity of just being right here, right now. And yet also feeling connected to each other over vast distances. Connected in this mutual intent to benefit not only ourselves, but to benefit beings everywhere. So may our intent, may our conversation today benefit beings, our practice today benefit beings everywhere, especially in those places where benefit is most needed, and compassion is most needed, and relief of suffering is most needed. Emaho. So, with everything that's happening today, with the events specifically in Israel and in the Gaza Strip, I feel like it's appropriate to think about and to talk about compassion. We are challenged by these events. We are living in a world that is so profoundly interconnected. Media, the internet. We have the ability, wherever you are, you have the ability to listen to me in real time. And I'm sitting in Colorado, and you may be sitting on a different continent, different country, or if you're in the United States, you may be a long distance from here. But here we are, listening and being together in real time. And so there's this interconnectedness. On the upside of that, at least from a Buddhist perspective, the upside of this is that it more closely resembles the true state of affairs, that everything is indeed completely interconnected, that everything is arising from the same ground. Ourselves and all phenomena around us and all other beings arising from that same ground. So we are not just interconnected in a cause and effect kind of way, but we are actually profoundly interconnected as we all arise from the same source, from the ground of being. And so we are profoundly interconnected. The downside of having this interconnectedness also mirrored in our media and in the internet and our access to events all across the globe is that we are profoundly impacted by things such as what's happening, such as the war in Israel and what happened in Israel a few days ago, and what the ongoing war and bombing and so forth that is happening. And we are directly exposed to that. We hear the news and we are directly impacted by this. We deeply feel these emotions, either or sometimes maybe we avoid feeling them. We also we tend to be really good at avoiding or pushing away things that are really uncomfortable. So maybe we haven't been paying attention as a kind of a remedy, as an antidote, because it's so intense for some of us. And maybe some of us, we don't feel it that intensely. And that may even bother us. Like, why don't I care more? So whatever our emotion is, we are impacted in some way, directly or indirectly, by these events. Some of us may be very directly involved. This is going out all over the world. People may be very close to what is the events that are unfolding. People may be right in Israel, in the Gaza Strip, listening to this at the moment and being very directly impacted. Or you may have family, or you may, that is very directly impacted. And so there are, or you have political views that are being triggered, or that are causing your emotions to feel specific emotions that are related to this. So we may be experiencing anger and outrage and fear, or just deep sadness and pain, Well, it may even, and it depends on how aligned you feel or how closely connected you are. But it may even go a step further, and you may be experiencing, feelings of blame and retribution, vengeance, that kind of thing. And sometimes, when we closely aligned with one side or the other, because of family or religious ties or racial ties or political views, we feel naturally aligned, and we experience those feelings of blame and vengeance and so forth, they're naturally arising. We have a kind of a, anger, about the injustice, and that's okay to feel these things. There's a quote from Machig Labdrön, and I know a lot of you listening know about Machig Labdrön. But Machig Labdrön was an 11th century yogini in Tibet. And she has these really profound and I think very applicable sayings. And she says, carry the load of appearing conditions. Carry the load of appearing conditions. If you don't carry the load of all phenomena, the remedy of peace and happiness can't liberate you. Carry the load of appearing conditions. If you don't carry the load of all phenomena, the remedy of peace and happiness can't liberate you. So this carry the load, that sounds like, oh, we really have to engage. We can't turn away. But really, it is an invitation to not turn away. It is an invitation to open our hearts even more. Right? Carry the load of appearing conditions. And if we don't carry the load, the remedy of peace and happiness cannot liberate you. So oftentimes we think about the antidote or the remedy to these terrible events that we see happening in the world is somehow some kind of remedy of peace and happiness for everyone. We have to counter these events with the all good, with something else, or we ourselves want to escape into some kind of realm where there's no pain and suffering. This is a natural tendency, right, for us, a natural propensity to seek out more comfort and peace and the absence of suffering. But she's saying, carry the load of appearing conditions. If you don't carry the load of all phenomena, the remedy of peace and happiness cannot liberate you. So what does she mean by that? Carry the load also, you can also say carry the load also can translate as to lean on or to trust. And this is really this refers to the fact that what I said in the beginning, that everything is arising out of the same ground. From a relative point of view, it seems like there is this absolute good and bad. There's a dualistic manifestation of everything. And it's so easy to fall into that dualistic notion of seeing everything as an epic battle between good and bad. And, aligning ourselves, hopefully with the good side, trying to overcome evil. Not that that's a false premise, but that's also part of what causes us so much pain, is because we see this like two sports teams playing, and the one is, evil is winning, kind of like an epic Lord of the Rings or Tolkien kind of view. And then we get extremely affected and depressed when things seem like, when evil seems to be starting to win. And it looks like the whole world is falling apart, and that evil is triumphant, and that the good side and the side of peace and happiness is losing. But what Machig is saying is that we have to carry the load of everything in order to realize peace and happiness. So what does that mean? There are two ways of looking at this, right? My partner, Charlotte always talks about, she grew up in New York and there's a statue there of Atlas. And Atlas is carrying the whole planet, the whole globe on his back. And there's these huge, strong muscles carrying this globe. But at the same time, he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. And so this is sometimes how we feel, like carry the load. It's like so overwhelming, so deeply painful to view these events of the world and to try and make sense of this and to try and process this and to feel powerless about doing something about it. How can we make it better? How can we relieve the suffering? So what does it mean to carry the load? We feel overwhelmed. We feel weighed down by the weight of the world and the sadness and the grief and the pain and the suffering. It seems never ending. And we have to carry the load. That's what she's saying. Carry the load. We have to just sit there and take it. And that just increases this feeling of powerlessness. But there's also another image here. And the image is of Prajna Paramita, the Great Mother, which is a representation really of the totality of all things. This ground of being, or this nature of mind that everything arises out of, is radiant and luminous. And because of that luminosity, everything manifests constantly, radiating out of the ground, all phenomena, including ourselves. And yes, there's duality as it arises. And because of that duality and our dualistic view, we can easily fall into seeing it as this epic battle between good and evil. But really, if we go back to the mother, everything is being held equally. So this carry the load, Machig is really inviting us to relax back into our vast non-dual nature. And it's not as in a some people say, well, it's an escape into the absolute, or it's not an escape into the absolute. It's a resting back into our own nature, which is also the nature of all phenomena. And by virtue of resting back into our nature, we found tremendous resource. We found tremendous power. It's not a kind of a resource that we're sipping off of in order to empower our self, our small self. It's actually a kind of a relinquishing of our egoic self into the larger ocean of awareness. And from that place, yes, we are even more connected to these events. We cannot avoid. It's not whether we want to be connected or not, whether we want to carry the load. In reality, because we have the same nature, we are carrying the load. It's actually just being more aware of that, doing it consciously. But the way we connect is what is the key difference. We are not our small self trying to carry the weight of events in the world and making sense of it. We are ourselves we are moving beyond the boundaries, the habitual boundaries of the egoic self, relaxing into this vaster nature. And from that point of view, from a place of being one with the Great Mother, we are carrying all these events. We are seeing this entire mandala, this entire experience arising in every moment without end, without beginning or end. And from that vast perspective, we are more empowered. We have more agency to view this in a way where we can actually we can actually get out of our own way and focus on compassion and benefit. We can see the suffering for what it is, for the ignorance and for the causes and the effects and the complexity that brings all of these events, and we can step back and rest in the vastness and then send love and compassion for this to be resolved in the best way, without without our small self getting in the way. So this Prajnaparamita, this great mother, this is what Machig is inviting us to do. It's, you know, other metaphors could be like space. The way, so Atlas is holding the globe like this and being weighed down. But how does space hold all phenomena? It holds it effortlessly. Space is not getting crowded out by the phenomena that appears within that space. Another way of thinking about it that's often used, but I find really helpful, is to think of an ocean and the waves on an ocean. And you may think of you know, the great mother is that ocean, Prajnaparamita, the source of all life, all phenomena. And it's inherently compassionate. It's not just, you know, sterile. It's radiant, luminous, potent, and inherently compassionate. This ocean of being, this great mother, Prajnaparamita. And we are made of that. Yes, we can lose our way in duality. We can get caught up in negativity and evil. But the ground of being is luminous, radiant, and compassionate, inherently, effortlessly, inherently compassionate. And so we think of this ocean, we may think of an ocean that is that. And we are like waves on that ocean. And we become preoccupied with our wave self or our waveness. We identify as wave. We see ourselves as these waves. And we see ourselves as separate waves, separate from the other waves. And we are happily or unhappily going across the ocean on our way. And we are relating to the other waves, like other beings, like other people, for example. And we have relationship with that and so forth. And then everything is going fine. And then one day we look up, and over the tops of the waves in front of us, we see a cliff. And we see successive waves in front of us smash into that cliff and splatter into a billion droplets. From the point of view of the wave, what we are witnessing is our own imminent demise. We are seeing the end of our waveness, of ourselves as a wave or as a human being. And from the point of view of the wave, that is extremely vexing, scary, because we can see that we are going to, and we want to continue this experience of a self as a wave, or of a self or of a wave in this metaphor. And so we contract. We are fearful because from the point of view of a wave, if we are identified as a wave, the wave smashing against the rock cliff is tremendously upsetting. It's complete annihilation. But we all will agree that the waves are completely part of the ocean. There's no separation between wave and ocean, really. It's the ocean that is making that wave. So if you realize as a wave that you are actually part of the ocean, that you are the ocean, and you are able to relax into your oceanness, from the point of view of the ocean, the waves crashing on the shore or the waves crashing against rock cliffs is not a problem whatsoever. And in a way, I'm not saying that these events that's happening in the world, these things are not a problem and everything is fine and don't worry about it. I'm just saying, I'm using that metaphor to say, if we can relax even just a little bit, and we can do this step by step. If we can relax into our oceanness, into this vaster nature that connects all of us inextricably, profoundly, if we can relax into that, from that point of view, we can bring the utmost benefit in terms of viewing these world events. We are more empowered. That's the birth of real compassion, true compassion. We are getting out of our own way. We are not clinging to the small self. We are getting out of the way and opening our hearts with tremendous vulnerability, opening it to the world without the feeling that we have to contract or protect or fight back. And the reason we can do this is because we're taking refuge in this vaster nature. We're not doing it just as the small self, and now I'm opening to the overwhelming intensity of what's going on in the world. No, that's not what I'm advocating. I'm saying practice to first make peace within yourself. In ourselves, we have these contradictions. Within ourselves, we have shadows. In ourselves, we have landscapes and events that we are constantly avoiding. Within ourselves, we are a microcosm of what's going on in the world out there. When we view events that we don't agree with, we completely distance ourselves from those events, and we judge those events. But actually, and I'm not saying we are responsible for those events, but in a way, we are a microcosm of paradox and conflict within ourselves. Sometimes we have shadow aspects that we also don't want to give the light of day, that we also want to keep suppressing. So let's start with the self. Let's open to ourselves and the inherent contradictions and the shadow aspects of ourselves, and see if we can hold it like the Great Mother, Prajnaparamita. If we can hold it with this view of oceanness rather than waveness. Open our hearts to our own suffering, our own contradictions, the stepchildren of our psyche that we are, avoiding or repressing. Start there. Make peace with ourselves. We make peace within ourselves. That is a way of uniting. That spills over into our view of the world and the conflict in the world and the dualities that are so pronounced in the world that it actually manifests in war, destruction. So let's make peace within ourselves and make peace with others, and let that natural compassion arise in that space within us and spill over into the world. And then we view the world from that point of view. And then from that point of view, with that natural arising compassion, effortless arising compassion, we're not trying to be compassionate. It's effortlessly arising because we are at peace with ourselves, because we relax, we practice to relax into the nature of our minds, into the vast nature of all things. Then that compassion that arises is a natural, effortless compassion. And from that place, there's a kind of an intelligence of how to relate and how to help. There's this great quote by Martin Luther King that I think is also really relevant here. It's in his letter from a Birmingham jail, he wrote, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." So this is another pointing to this inescapable network of mutuality. We are all in that same ocean, from that same ocean. And because we realize that doesn't mean the waves stop happening or the storms stop happening or the sharks are not catching fish anymore. It's all still happening, but our view has changed profoundly. So, and not only our view, but our ability to benefit and to intend benefit and to bring benefit is hopefully also changing with that. You know, and if we, so maybe another way of looking at compassion or our ability to be compassionate or to channel compassion, you know, in this context is, you know, you can think of it's sort of a progression from self to becoming aware of other to totality, which is the ocean in my metaphor, or Prajna Paramita, the great mother, right? At the extreme end, we feel isolated as beings, as separate beings. We feel completely separate from the mother. We feel like here I am in this body. I look out and there I see other phenomena and other beings. So I am not them. I'm separate from them. So there's definitely, of course, a strong propensity to see ourselves as separate from everything else. And from that point of view, we contract around that separateness, that entity of the self, and we try and protect that, and we try and, you know, seek comfort over pain and so forth. That's all natural. So, but when we look at these events, if we look at compassion, if we are completely fixed in this notion of a separate self, the way that kind of compassion that we practice is more like a kind of a sympathy. It's more based on egoic separation. It's something like this. We identify as a human being of a specific place of, say, you know, race, religion, cultural background, you know, and so forth, privilege or lack thereof. And then we see something happening to someone else. And the degree to which we can identify with them gives rise to sympathy in us. So the more we can identify, the closer aligned we feel with them in terms of racial, religious, cultural ties, and so forth, the easier it is for us, because we can more easily identify with them. So we feel sorry for them, or we feel compassion. We have our own fear that what is happening to them may also happen to us. And if that happened to us, that would be so terrible, because we can identify with them and we wouldn't want that to happen with us. So now we can feel sympathy and empathy for them. But you see, this is kind of a complicated mechanistic thing where we don't feeling compassion because we completely identify with them, because we are connected to them directly. We feel compassion, we feel empathy because we can identify with them. But the problem with this is also that the less we can identify with them, the further away they are geographically or culturally, the less we feel sympathy potentially. But now, as we become more invested in this idea of a ground of being that unites all of us, this vaster ocean that we're all part of, and we practice relaxing and expanding into that, into our true nature, there's growth that happens. There's a different view from this place. And this is not different people at different levels of evolution necessarily. It's in our own lives. Sometimes we feel more connected, and other times we feel more isolated or depressed. So when we feel more connected, right, we start getting a little bit out of our own way, less preoccupation with the self and fixing the self and our own fears, less preoccupation, more relaxation, more openness. And then we feel more connected to everything else and everyone else, actually connected. So when we feel really connected to everyone, that's a natural compassion, right? Because what is happening to them is actually directly impacting us. So this is a kind of an empathy that's more based on actual interconnectedness. The problem is we feel that pain because we realize we are connected, but then we still inherit the pain, and we are trying to make sense of it as an island, as a self. And again, we back to the atlas metaphor. We feel, what do we do with the intensity and the bigness, the vastness, this the pain, the suffering that's going on? How do we process that personally? Or can we do something? Or we feel guilty for not being able to do something. So there's still the self involved that is trying to make sense of this. This is a kind of a compassion that's more based on a realization of interconnectedness, but it's still being held by the small self and trying to, it gets stuck there. And then there's the view of totality, where we completely relax into the interconnectedness of all things and rest there and can find that place. And from that place, that's the big view. That's absolute compassion, effortless compassion, what I was talking about earlier. It's not us taking things so personally. It's like imagining if you have a Buddhist background or, religious background, imagine you're a deity. Like not with complete power, but with complete wisdom. Manifesting the perfection of wisdom. How would you look at events in the world from that place? This is the kind of view that we can practice. It doesn't fix things, but it gives rise to true unencumbered compassion. So there is this question that we are confronted with, or at least that I'm confronted with when things happen. I mean, there are a lot of terrible things happening in the world right now. The news cycle and everything is dominated by this war in Israel and in the Gaza Strip and what's happening there. But there's also a war going, in the Ukraine. I mean, in Ukraine. There's also a war going on there. And it's been going on for a long time. And then there are other places of conflict, and there are just everyday suffering of people that it doesn't even make the news. And so there's this feeling of can we do something rather than just talk about it? And so I want to invite you, let's do some practice around this. If any of this is true that I'm talking about this interconnectedness and this common ground of being that is a resource, and that is effortless, self-arising compassion, then let's tap into that and send some of that out to these places where there's a lot of suffering right now and where this may benefit beings. So I want to invite you to just do this practice with me. We'll start. And you can close your eyes for this, or keep them open. But I want to invite you to take a moment, if you've been listening sort of in the background, or just take a moment and actually come present to this practice. So again, we start by just simply being present where we are, in the present moment. Nothing special, just coming home to where we are in this moment and letting go of distractions or preoccupations. And if you're comfortable with it, maybe feel your body as much as you can. Maybe become aware of your breath. Relaxing with the out-breath. So not only are you coming present, but you're trying to relax your body and your mind as much as you can in this moment. Just take a little respite, a little rest in the middle of everything. You can pick everything back up in a moment, but for now, just let it go and rest. So as our bodies relax, our mind tends to slow down and relax as well. So encourage that. Just take a little bit of time right here to just be and be relaxed. And now as your attention is with your body, your awareness is maybe with your body, hovering in the immediate space in your body or around your body. Let go and open your awareness, whatever that means for you. So it opens up and expands. Your awareness expands out around you, so that you have this notion of spacious awareness. Not only are you present in the moment, but there's this notion of space. You may imagine that space is vast, and that space is connected to all things, that all phenomena arises and takes place within that space. You're not going anywhere else. You are just becoming present in the vastness of everything, without trying to grasp or apprehend anything. You're just resting. And now from this place, we're going to practice some Tonglen, or taking and waking. And Tonglen is Tibetan for giving and taking. And we're doing an exchange where we imagine you breathing in from this place of expanded, restful awareness. On your in-breath, imagine you are taking the obscurations, the suffering, the pain, the ignorance from the situation in Israel and Gaza. Breathe it in, and then flash on this vastness, and then breathe out the relief from suffering, relief from conflict, from ignorance. You may imagine it's like white light of healing and benefit. And on the in-breath, you may imagine it's dark smoke, black smoke, and you're pulling it away from these areas of conflict. You can include Ukraine if you wish. Removing the veils of ignorance, affliction, violence, suffering. And breathing out relief from suffering. Whatever is most needed in those areas to bring relief from conflict, from pain, from suffering, from loss, from grief. Breathing in the pain and suffering, and we're not taking it on personally. We're breathing it out, pulling it away, and sublimating it into this vast spaciousness, this ground of being that can hold all things. And as we do this, we believe that it's actually making a difference. And we can include ourselves in this practice, breathing obscurations, breathing our own pain, our own conflict, our own sadness, our own grief, our own conflictedness. Breathe it in. Let it go in the vastness of this ocean of awareness, this Mother Prajnaparamita. And breathe out the light of understanding, compassion, love, healing. And just keep breathing like this, breathing in, pulling away, taking away the suffering and the pain, and breathing out relief from that, compassion and love. And with it, our own pain, our own confusion. Whenever we feel powerless and frustrated, and take a moment to do this practice. So let's do a few more breaths, breathing in pain and suffering, the conflict, the grief. And then breathing out in establishments, in peace, providing compassion, love, understanding, healing. Doing a last breath as if we're removing all final vestiges, all final obscurations, establishing those regions in clarity, the light of love and compassion, healing. Thank you very much for doing that. And if we really are connected, then may seem indirect, but it is a way that we can directly participate and do our bit, because we are part of it, and then collectively we can heal and we can bring relief. So thank you very much for joining us today, and may you be blessed in everything you undertake and everything you do. And let's have an attitude of seeing where can we help and how can we help in general, even in small ways in our own environment. So let's close by dedicating any merit generated through this time together, this work of compassion, even though it may be small but powerful. Let's dedicate any merit generated by today's time together, our intentions, this network of us listening and being, receiving across the globe, any benefit generated by this. be dedicated to those who need it most in this time on the planet. May they be supported in the best way possible and experience relief from suffering. Imaho. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter, for sharing your insights, your guidance with us on how to be and how to practice today when these deeply heartbreaking things are happening. We deeply appreciate your presence today, truly being for us in this challenging moment. Thank you. And thank you to you watching this live or through the recording. It's all of our collective energy that makes it possible for us to come together. And we hope to see you again next Sunday for another session of Lama Live. And speaking of special live events, we would like to invite you to join us on November 4th to celebrate the magic of Taramandala as we enter into our 30th year. Lama Sultrim Alyone, our other beloved teachers and Sangha members will come together to share stories, inspiration, joy, and simply time together. And we hope you will too. So the link in the chat will be posted shortly. And finally, following the tradition going all the way back to the time of the Buddha 2600 years ago, you have the opportunity to make an offering. To make an offering of dana to our guest teacher today. Dana is a Pali and Sanskrit word that means generosity, and dana directly recognizes the precious gift of the teacher and the teachings, without which one could not practice the Dharma. If you would like to offer dana, please follow the link you will see in the chat in a moment. Thank you so much, everyone. May we meet again and again on the path, and may all beings benefit everywhere.
Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare tu re